Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Hello. It is David. Welcome. And wanted to mention a few folks who had listened to the video that I did yesterday. John Hopp, shouting out to John Hopp from John and I go back to high school. We got into a lot of trouble together at Lehman High School. But John really enjoyed my bantering. And he even made the statement that I should have been a doctor bantering. He said, I'm smart enough to be a doctor bantering. And he actually compared me to a common friend of ours from high school, who I will not mention, and said I should have been a doctor. And I said that was definitely not my calling in life. Don't have much of a science mind, but I have a son who does. At one time, he got a calling to be a doctor, and before that became a reality, he got another calling. So he's the one, if it's going to happen in my family. But I want to thank John for that very humorous comment. And I was thinking there was one other individual. Well, I wanted to just thank Doug Savage, who I bantered with yesterday. It really was a fun experience for me. Doug and I go way back. Grew up 2 blocks from one another, but we had a lot of fun especially in high school. We competed in boys extemporaneous speaking every Saturday morning. Sometimes it was a weekend long kind of thing. We went to tournaments, and we were given a topic, and we had 10 minutes to prepare, 10 or 15 minutes to prepare a presentation that would last, I don't remember how long, maybe 7 or 8 minutes. We would compete, and they would compute the results and declare a winner and give trophies and ribbons and what have you. And I said yesterday in introducing Doug that he is the only person in my life who has beaten me every single time that I have gone up against him. And I said, maybe there was once or twice, and he agreed there was once or twice. But then as I sent him a link to the Facebook Live, he came back with a comment that, well, I didn't mention that I could even beat you with a sore throat. Thank you, Doug, for a wonderful conversation, and I know you and I will be having a lot more. I just know I can banter with you as much as anytime, whenever. We just find some things to talk about and have some fun. I did a posting this morning. I'm not exactly sure. Well, I know I posted it in my Facebook story, but I posted it somewhere else in Facebook or somewhere. I'm not even sure that it was Facebook, and I got some response back on it. And I wanted to share that in this video. It was a true story and something that happened, and very, very memorable to me. I had just posted this true story somewhere else in cyberspace's social media world. The purpose of the posting was somebody had listed 4 different reasons for responding or doing whatever or behavior. I'm not exactly sure, remember what the wording was. And there were 4 different choices, and I picked the last choice, which was, unfortunately, I cannot accept this. Uh, that was one of the reasons that was chosen, how we respond to something. And so the reason that I could not accept this was, in the early 90s, I was in front of 11, I called them vice presidents. Uh, Many of them in the room were, but I don't know how many. It was them against me, of a company. I don't want to embarrass them 30 years later by mentioning their name. It's a true story with a very, very well-known company. And uh, I don't want to mention it because it happened 30 years ago, but we had a lot of fun with it. They had called me into their offices. Um, at that time, I was doing work with uh, the world's largest teleservices company. It was a Fortune 500 company, and um, I got a reputation on certain kinds of projects. They called me in on this project to see if I would engineer it, and they uh, read me. Well, I did not know that was the purpose of the meeting. Actually, uh, a company this size, this reputation, when they called to come in and make a presentation, you go to make your presentation. You should ask for an agenda, and that was a mistake that I made. Well, I would have gone anyways, but when you go into a meeting, always understand what the agenda is so that you can properly prepare your thoughts for that meeting. That's just a basic rule, and it's a fair rule. If somebody cannot give you the reason for the meeting, then run, uh, because it won't have as much purpose. And I'm talking more in a business sense now than I am in a personal sense. So they called me in and they said, David, we've got this. Here's the objective. Here's the strategy. Here's the actual plan. Will you engineer it for us with your associate company? And I just looked at this gentleman and I said, no, I won't. And he had this look on his face. He said, you mean that you're saying no to such and such, the company? And I said, yes, I am saying no. I said, I would engineer the project for you, but I will not engineer it with your with your strategy, your parameters, because I don't think it'll work. Was basically what I said. And here I am in this room with 11 vice presidents saying, no, I don't want to do work with you. So he got very angry at me. He said, well, I'm going to tell everybody in this company never to do business with you or your company. And I said, I can't control that. If that's what you've got to do, do it. Go ahead and do it. So I politely stood up and thanked them for their time, and walked out of the room. There is a sidebar to the story, and the sidebar to the story is that they tested the project in-house. They did it themselves. They teleservices group of folks, and they could do it, so they did it themselves. And I found out that the test never got out of test. It just didn't work. So it was what it was. I just personally could not. The projects that I affiliate with, I want to be successful. I don't want them to fail. If I have a gut feeling that it might fail, then I have to walk away. I definitely have to walk away. And I see Steve Waller has joined. Man alive. Steve Waller reads all my postings. He does comes and watches all my videos. I guess Steve is my main cheerleader. And Steve, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so today I wanted to officially banter. 2 days ago, I started to read from chapter 23 of this book, Business Strategies for Explosive Growth in the New Economy, featuring David Leopold and Brian Tracy. This was a project I participated in 11 years ago, 2010, and I wrote chapter 23. 32 other folks wrote their chapters, and the publisher tied them all together, put them in a book, and we distributed the book. The title of my chapter was 21 Great Business and Personal Lessons I Have Learned in My 38 Years as a Small Business Owner. And that was, it was 38 years now, it's more than that. I have talked about my grandfather, who was probably the greatest influence on my life in terms of the entrepreneurial mindset. Passing right on to my father, who late in life, very late in his life, in the last 6 years of his life, in 1967, he actually started two businesses. One he bought and one he started in 1967. And it was my grandfather who helped my father to start the business. And the one that he bought, it was a publishing endeavor. And I was actually a senior in high school at the time and fortunate enough to be able to listen to the business discussions on the buying and selling of a business, specifically a publishing one. And just as things go in life, my first experience outside of college was I was publishing a magazine with a philanthropist, entrepreneur in Charlotte, North Carolina. After a year doing that, then I got a calling from a gentleman who was a publisher in New York, and he wanted me to come to New York to build a marketing and sales department for his weekly newspaper. And I accepted that challenge and moved to New York. And I actually only lived in New York for 100 days because my father had passed away back in my hometown as a publisher and also another small business owner. And I made the decision to go back to my hometown, which was Canton, Ohio, to help my mother because she would not have been able on her own to publish the magazine or, for that matter, run the other business. And so my grandfather he summoned me and his son to come and pay my mother and his sister for those businesses so that my mom didn't have to worry about anything. And that's what we did. Okay, so I ended this story with my mother, and let me reread the paragraph and then tell you I ended on with the statement 2 days ago that since I was 14 years old, my mother has been my best friend. My mother is 97 years old, and whereas we can't go back and reflect on stories and talk about things at this stage of her life, uh, she's still my best friend. And uh, well, let me read this and I'll tell you why she's my best friend. My mother has been the only business partner that I have ever had, and I thank her very much for accepting my offer to buy the business from her. Of course, it didn't exactly go that way because my grandfather told me that's what I was going to do. And so I didn't question that. I've enjoyed being her oldest son. We would not have made great business partners. Uh, and in this book, I say just 3 days ago, my then 87-year-old mother said to me, David, how is it again you make money? That was always the question the first question when it came to business, my mother always asked me, how do you make money? And the reason why she was asking me as she got older, she would say to me, David, people are asking me about how do you make money, and I don't know what to tell them. What should I tell them? And my answer to my mother back then was, Mom, I'm not exactly sure I can explain to you everything that I do, but I'm still doing it. So it must work. It works for me. You know what? And after I said that to her, I don't think she ever asked me that question again. Uh, are you making any money? That's certainly a relative question because making money for one individual and their business is not necessarily making money for the other one. It's every business has their unique aspect, and they all have to make money to continue with that specific project. If other folks are dependent upon you and your ability to make a business that works. Uh, the reason that my mother has been my best friend since I was 14, when I was 14 years old, I took an oath in an organization. It was called DMLA. I didn't know much about it, but my father was a 32nd degree Mason, and they kind of sponsored this group, DMLA, or founded it. It was a starting place. So I joined the group and I had to pledge that I would never do anything in my life that I would not talk to my mother about. And to this day, or to the day she actually understood the things I was saying, I have kept that pledge. And subsequently, my mother has heard anything and everything about me, good and bad, but it was a pledge I made, a commitment I made, and one that I've kept. And I'm very, very glad that I kept it, especially with my mother. I'm at 19 minutes now. We're going to have to continue. The next group that I talk about, I'm going to not mention them in my discussion because when the book came out and they read it in the book, I got into a lot of trouble. So I am not going to read those actually just one paragraph. And we're going to leave off here, but when I pick up, great place to pick up. I'm going to talk about my sons, and I will actually update this information that I wrote 11 years ago, and talk about my sons because I am Very proud of my sons and what they have been able to do. They are both uh, outstanding marketers, uh, really outstanding marketers, and how sales attach to marketing. And I'm proud of the accomplishments to have made. And we'll talk a little bit about that in our next Just Bantering. My name is David, and thank you for sharing your time with me today. We look forward to bantering with you again. And Steve, what is it that I say at the end? We'll see you the next time, which may very well be the best time. See you then.